Hello, hello, good morning. It's Monica from Life is Art, and this is the Thursday 10 a.m. technique at the Cottage Weekend Online Crop. Are you guys ready to have some fun at the cottage? I hope so. Now, I've got my camera lifted up really high, and I'm thinking I can probably bring it down a little closer. I was trying to get as much of the mat in as possible so that we can see everything that's happening. And we are going to go off the edge a little bit, but we'll shift around so that we can see as much as we can. Alrighty, if you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. If you're watching them later on replay, you can say replay. I see that Laura is here, good morning, and Deborah, Joanne, hello, hello. Hey, Denise, and Diane Bruce is here too. We got two Dianes watching. Oh, she's watching on mute, so she can't hear me saying hi. Yeah, some people like to join at work on mute, and that way they can follow along and not miss anything too crucial. Hey, Cheryl, nice to see you're watching. So this morning and over the next couple, 2 or 3 mornings, we are going to be working on a project. And we have done this kind of thing before, where we start a project on day 1 and we keep working at it throughout the crop. And so for our technique over the next 2 or 3 mornings, we're going to be working on a 6x6 mini album. And we have done a mini album during a crop before. It's a little bit longer project, so that's why we spread it out. All right, so today for part 1, we're going to be making our 6x6 album cover and hinge for our album. So the things that we're going to need for that, we're going to need some chipboard, and what I do is I save the chipboard that comes inside paper packs and also paper pumpkin kits and card making kits, and this is like sturdy, lovely, free chipboard because it comes with the product that you're purchasing anyway. So I've got that. I've got some cardstock and some designer series paper or pattern paper. So for our cover, though, we're going to be using this chipboard. Now, you can use other things as well. You can use cereal boxes, cracker boxes, Jamaican patty boxes. Those of you who know me know I store my stamp sets in Jamaican patty boxes, that kind of thing. I wouldn't use corrugated cardboard because the problem with corrugated cardboard is that it has air pockets, and if they get pushed, they get dented, and then that's not a nice look necessarily for your finished project. You don't want to get it all done and then have somebody, stick something on top of it and dent the front of your album. That would be so sad. So I'm using chipboard, but you can definitely use any other kind of cardboardy-like thing that's not corrugated. I'm just seeing comments flashing up here. Hey, Karen, joining from Australia. Oh, my goodness, it's midnight. Okay, so you're going to watch now, and then you're going to go to bed, right? Okay, so we're going to need 3 pieces of chipboard. 2 of them are going to be 6x6 inch square. So I've got my 2, and mine are actually slightly itty-bitty larger than 6 inch. It's like 6 inch and a 16th or maybe a 32nd, but 6x6. I just didn't feel like trimming off the extra little bit. I just cut the one direction, and that was that. So I have 2 6x6 pieces of chipboard, and then I have a 1x6 piece, and this is going to be the spine. This particular album, we're going to make it with 3 signatures or 3 pages, but the pages involve multiple things. And so our hinge will have 3 flaps on it too. So 1 inch will work for that. If you want to make this and you want to add more signatures, just make your spine wider and adjust the size of the hinge that we're going to create. That's all you got to do. So 6 by 6, 2, and 1 by 6. Okay, and once we've got that done, we need something to cover it. And one thing that my mom actually uses, because she makes oodles of mini albums, she's like the mini album queen. She uses wallpaper samples. You know, when you go to the paint and wallpaper store and they have the big books of samples, they just throw those out when they're done, like when the season is done or when they're, you know, whenever they're done using that book. So sometimes you can go in and ask them, hey, when you're done with that book, could I have it? Can you give me a call? I'll come pick it up. And they're more than happy to do it, because otherwise they're just throwing it out. So she gets lovely wallpaper samples. And one thing about wallpaper is it's nice and thick, and sometimes it has like that vinyl-y coating on it, so they're nice and sturdy. I'm going to use cardstock. You could use designer series paper, but you might want to reinforce the spine a little bit. So I'm just going to go with cardstock because that works perfectly. So I'm going to need 2 pieces of cardstock because we need a longer length than my cardstock will make on its own. And so I'm using garden green, and I've got 2 pieces. One is 8.5 by 7 1/4. So 8.5 by 7 1/4, and the second piece is 6.5 by 7 1/4. And what that's going to give us when we get it all stuck together and overlap by 1/2 inch, it's going to give us, I believe, 14 1/4 inches. Okay, let me just double check that. So we got 8, and then 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14 and a half. Sorry, 14 and a half. Okay. So obviously my 12 by 12 paper wasn't going to cut it. And what I like to do is where there's a join, I don't want to have that happening on the spine. I usually try to make it so that it will be on the back side of my album, and it'll get covered by some pretty paper anyway. So it's not going to be that noticeable. Okay, so we've got our 2 pieces, and we need to stick them together. And so what I like to do to stick my 2 pieces together is I'm going to take some adhesive, and I'm going to run it right at the end of this piece, all the way top to bottom. Okay, now you can use whatever kind of adhesive you like. You can use sequin, the red tape. I'm just using my regular, and then we're going to add a little bit of glue for insurance, okay? So I always like to say that this will hold it for now, the glue will hold it forever, as long as you got good glue. Then I'm going to take my second piece, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to put my adhesive right along the edge again. And what that's going to do is that way I know when I line these 2 pieces up and I overlap them by 1/2 inch that there's adhesive at the end of both of the pieces. Okay, if I put adhesive on only one, I might actually overshoot a little bit, which you don't want either. But when you put it on right at the end on both, then you're usually in good shape. Now I'm scanning my desk, which has literally nothing on it at the moment, to find my take your pick tool. Why does it always disappear into the ether? I just had it. I just used it. Where did I put it? And is it in the holder where it's supposed to be? It is not. Oh my gosh. I totally lost my take your pick tool. Okay. Nobody panic. I'm just going to grab a different tool. There we go. We just need something to peel the backing. That's all we need. Because sometimes our fingernails don't cut it, especially if we've squished it down good. Okay, so we're going to take the backing off of both of those, and then I'm going to come in with some liquid glue, and I'm paying attention to the 1/2 inch line. I'm just going to add some liquid glue. Doesn't have to be fancy. Come on. It does help if it actually comes out, though. And this is where the concern is. If I squeeze it hard right now, I might get a whole big blob, and then it'll smush everywhere. So I'm going to do it. There we go. Going to do it on some tissue. so that I don't get it all over my project. Okay, we got our liquid glue insurance. We're lined up. This is where it comes in handy to use a mat. Or, here's another trick you can do. Maybe I'll try it. Is you can use your, your scoring tool. So if you tuck this up in the corner, like that, you know it's nice and straight, and you can line your piece up with the 8-inch score line, like that, and then stick it down, and then you know that's going to be straight. You just want to be careful. Don't smush it too hard in case there's any glue that spills out, because then you'll have glue stuck in your scoreboard, and that's a pain in the cookies. If you don't have a scoreboard, you can just line it up along some lines, along a straight edge, and just make sure everything stays straight, because your finished project will turn out better if everything is straight. And then you're going to make sure that everything's adhered, and not as essential with cardstock, but when you're gluing liquid glue with your pattern paper, you want to make sure you're not getting weird ridges. You know how you put glue and then you can see where the swirl was? You want to avoid that. Let me see. Oh, I see comments. Hey, Johanna. Nice to see you're watching. And Denise. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. So we now have our 14.5 by 7 1/4 piece of cardstock that we're going to put our thing on. We're going to put our thing on. I'm going to put it here in the middle, so hopefully everybody can see. I'm going to line it up nice and straight. Now, we have 14.5, so our center is going to be 7 1/4, and we're going to be adding our 1-inch spine. We're going to start in the middle and work our way out. So if 17 1/4 is our center, then we know we have to move 1/2 inch to the left, which is 6 3/4. And then when we lay this down, we know that that's going to be in the middle, okay? So we want to center it from top to bottom, which is going to be a bit of a trick for me because I can't really see the top of my paper because I'm so far away from it trying to get everything in on the video. But we'll do our best. I may have to stand up. Gonna put my adhesive on there. That's our stick for now. Grab our liquid glue, and this will be our stick for later, or stick forever. Oh, there, see, now it wanted to do the big smushy. That's what we were avoiding before. There we go. Get all that glue on there. Get it off the bottle. Okay, so we want to center it from top to bottom and keep it vertical in the center, so it's good to use a big ruler for that. And there we go. Okay, and give it a good old squish down. It's the squish down. Okay, now we've got liquid glue there, but we also have the tape, so that's going to keep it from shuffling around too much while I'm pushing on it. If you're just using liquid glue, make sure you keep a good firm hold on it so it doesn't squiggle out of alignment. Okay, now we're going to come in with our 2 pieces, but we're not going to stick them right up against that because our cover will never fold. We're going to leave a little bit of a space, and the easiest way to figure out how much space is to use the second piece to create a little gap. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my first piece, I'm going to add my adhesive, the hold it now adhesive, like that, and then take off all of our backing. Who's excited about a mini album? The reason I'm doing this is because a lot of you have actually asked questions about them and have requested this again, because it's been a while since we did one. And so I thought this seems like a good time to do it because we're talking about being at the cottage, and mini albums are great for documenting sort of a little vacation or a trip or a particular event. And also, cottages are little houses and mini albums are little albums. So it just seemed to follow, right? Okay, so we're going to take our second piece and we're just going to stand it up there. And then we're going to put our first piece in, or our left side, and set it down, and hopefully it'll be straight-ish, and we've got that nice little gap there. Now you're going to say to yourself, that's great, but what are we going to do about the other side? Because the other side, we've got no second piece, but we do have a second piece, because I trimmed a piece off. Oops, just dropped it on the ground. We trimmed a piece off when we were cutting our bases. So just grab your scrappy bit, and that's what you're going to use for the second side. Okay? So let's grab our adhesive. There are lots of different ways to make mini albums, and I love that my mom likes to make mini albums and shows all the fun different ideas. She was showing us an interesting one just yesterday during We Craft Wednesday. And, you know, you can make signatures that go on hinges like this one. You can have signatures or pages that go underneath elastics. You can sew them in. You can do so many different things. The one yesterday she was showing was made with a file folder. And that was what she used as the base for the album. And there's so many fun ideas of what people have done. YouTube and Pinterest and all these places. So lots of ways to do it. Now this happens to be my preferred method. And, but there are plenty. Okay, let's line that up. So we get our nice little gap there. Tuck that up against it. Hopefully centered. And I've gone off the edge of my mat. So I'll just scooch over. Scoozle on over. And we'll stick that down. Now I'm going to flip this over and use my bone folder and just make sure we've got everything stuck down nice and good. And the other thing we can do while we're flipped over here is we can find where the gap is between the two pieces and just run your bone folder down that gap. Because basically what we're doing is we're going to score our cardstock. And what do we know about scoring? Well, we know that if we score our cardstock, that stretches the fibers of the paper. And if you score on this side, you're creating a dip. The other side is the bump. And we always fold with the bump side to the inside. And the reason is we've stretched the fibers on this outside so that they're going to be easier to fold later without cracking the paper, because we've already relaxed the paper a little bit, the fibers of the paper. So that's all we're doing when we're doing that. We're just relaxing the fibers, creating a little bit of extra stretch so that it will fold nicely later. Okay. Now that we've got this far, we need to work on our hinge. Hey, Carol, good morning. So our hinge is going to go here centered on the spine. Let me scooch this out of the way. And we're going to be creating our spine using a piece of cardstock. And this has been cut to 6 inches by 5.5. So we've got 6 inches by 5.5, and 6 is going to be our measurement. That's how it's going to sit in here. So the 5.5 is going to be the vertical height. Okay, so keep that in mind because that's going to be important when we do our scoring. Let me grab the scoreboard. So we're putting our 6-inch side along here. I just realized I should probably close my glue. And grab our stylus. Now, I'm going to rattle off a lot of numbers. Don't worry. I will post all the measurements when I post the photos at the end of the video, okay? or if you're watching later on YouTube, it will be in the description. So don't panic, but I will try to repeat myself a couple times. Okay, so along this 6-inch side, we're going to score first at 1 inch. That's easy. So 1 inch score line. Just like that. Then we're going to score at 1 1/4. So 1 1/4. And then we're going to jump 1/2 inch. And we're going to go over to 1 3/4. Now, if you look at these 3 panels, so far we've got a 1 inch section, a 1/4 inch section, and a 1/2 inch section. The part that's going to stick up on our hinge is going to be 1/2 inch tall. So it needs to come up and it needs to go back down. So our very next one is going to be 1/2 inch again, which will be scored at 2 1/4. Okay. Now, between our little sticky up pieces on our hinge, you know what, I might as well show you the visual. Okay, so our little sticky up pieces are going to be 1/2 inch, and the gap in between is going to be 1/4 inch. So we've got our 1 inch, and then we left a little 1/4 inch, and then we went 1/2 inch up and 1/2 inch down. Now we're going to go 1/4 inch. Then we're going to go 1/2 inch up, 1/2 inch down, 1/4 inch. And you're just going to repeat that process. 1/2 inch up, 1/2 inch down, and 1/4 inch. Now, if you want to add more pages, you're just going to keep doing it. You're going to go 1/2 inch up, 1/2 inch down, 1/4. So if you want 4, 5, 6, 20, whatever you want, I mean, 20 would be huge, but, and then just increase the size of your spine to accommodate for the width. All those 1/4 inches need to be accommodated for. Okay, so we have done 1 inch, 1 1/4, 1 3/4, and 2 1/4, and that's given us our beginning, our first 1/4 inch, and our first hinge. Okay, now we're going to do another 1/4 inch, so 2 1/2. Now we need to do our 2 1/2 inches, so we're going to go to 3 inch, and then 3 1/2. And that is now our second one. So now we need to repeat that 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. So we're going to go to 3 3/4, and now 1/2 inch, so 4 1/4, and then 4 3/4. Okay, now our very last one is just 1/4 inch away at 5 inches. So that we've kind of got a mirror image. We've got 1 inch on either side, then 1/4 inch, and then we start into our 1/2 inches. Okay, so that's the theory of how you make the hinge in terms of scoring. Now we need to do some folding and creasing. Now, on our hinge here, we have mountain folds and valley folds. The only mountain folds we have are the ones that are sticking up. Those are the ones that are right in between those 1/2 inch sections, okay? The ones that are in between, because that's the mountain fold, right? It's at the top of the mountain. So if we go to our 1/2 inch sections and we take this crease that's in between those 2 1/2 inch sections, push the crease line up the mountain from behind. So we create a mountain, okay? And fold it down, make sure everything lines up. And I always crease from the center up, center down, or center down, center up, doesn't matter. But always start from the center. If you start from one side and go all the way to the other side, you have a tendency to shift that paper and it will get out of alignment. But if you start in the center, it's like you've said this and no further. Here I will make my stand. So we've got our first mountain fold. We're going to go to the second pair of 1/2 inch pieces, and we're going to create another mountain fold. So we're going to push that score line up the mountain from behind, creating a mountain fold, and we can lay it down, crease. Okay, so we've got 2 mountain folds now. Now we're going to go to our third and final pair of 1/2 inch sections, and we're going to push that score line up, which folds the paper back, There we go. Now, once we've done those 3 mountain folds, everything else is a valley fold. And a valley fold is where you push the score line down into the valley. So we're going to go to our first 1-inch score line, push it down into the valley. And now it's just kind of a process of creating all those other folds as valley folds. So you just work your way across. Once you've got the mountain ones done, you know there's not a lot of thinking. It's just everything else is a valley fold, where you're folding right sides together. If you're a sewer, you know the theory of right sides together. Mountain folds are wrong sides together. Valley folds are right sides together. We'll just work our way all the way across all those little 1/4-inch sections, and then the outside 1-inch sections. And then when you're done, you take a look at it and make sure that everything has been folded. Because occasionally you get to the end and you're like, oh, I totally missed 2 of the crease lines. Okay, so we've got our 3 mountain folds now, and all of our valley folds, and we squish it together. We should have 3 hinges that are up, our 1-inch sections on each side, and the 1/4 inches in between and on the outside. Okay, so they should all be showing there. Now what we want to do is we want to apply some adhesive to glue those 1/2-inch sections wrong sides together. So we're going to go to the back side. And what I like to do for this is I turn it sideways. I grab my Stick It For Now adhesive. And we've got our 1-inch section, our 1/4-inch section, and then our first 1/2-inch section. I'm going to run this adhesive right beside that score line on the 1/2-inch section. Okay, so I don't know if you'll be able to see that very well. But see, I have score line 1/4 inch, score line 1/2 inch, and my adhesive is right along that. And I'm going to continue that process. Every 1/2-inch section is going to have a piece of adhesive right beside the score line. And what that will do is this has got adhesive sort of at the one side, and then if I put the adhesive in the same place on the next one, it means that I'll have adhesive for that full 1/2 inch, okay, without having to put all the adhesive on one side. So let's go to this next 1/2 inch section, and right beside the score line, put adhesive. Then we're jumping over the 1/4 inch, we're going to the next 1/2 inch, and we're going to put some adhesive just past the score line, next 1/2 inch. And it's always good to talk to yourself when you're doing this. If you get too distracted by other things, like right now I'm thinking, I should check and see if anybody said anything in the comments. But then I'm like, no, if I stop in the middle of this process, I will forget what I'm doing. And I will put things in the wrong place. Okay, so now I've got 6 strips of adhesive. 1 for each 1/2 inch section. Okay. Good morning, Mom. I do not want to take all that adhesive off at the same time. That's a recipe for sticking to everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to take 2 off from that first section over here. And I'm going to grab some glue and add some glue just on one of those 1/2 inch sections that has the exposed tape, adhesive, whatever you want to call it. My glue is thinking about coming out. Notice I'm in the center of the thing, not right at the end where it's going to go smushy everywhere. I left my lid off for like 1/2 second earlier. And now it's decided it wants to. There we go. Okay, so we're just going to add a little bit of adhesive on here. And this is the Hold It Forever glue. It's not really. It's called Tombow Mono Multi. Okay, now we're going to take those 2 1/2 inch sections and we're going to stick them together. And the easiest way to do that is to lay everything down and then squish Make sure we got good contact, okay? So there is our first little hinge ready to go. Now we're going to go to the next two. We're going to reveal the adhesive. Like that. We're going to put a little bit of liquid glue along one of the 1/2 inch pieces. And then we're going to stick those two together. Again, we can lay it down. Kind of push everything else off to the side. Make sure it's stuck down good. And there we have our second little hinge. Ta-da! Okay, let's fold those out of the way and reveal our adhesive on the next two 1/2 inch pieces. Add some of our liquid glue. Hold it forever. All right, and then we're going to take those two sides, stick them together, lay it down, make sure everything is smushed. You can even use your bone folder. And now we have our third and final little hinge. Now we want to make sure that our hinges fold nicely and our pages move nicely and everything's happy. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold all of them to the right. And we're going to squish them down. And we're going to fold them all to the left. And we're going to squish them down. And then we're going to go one at a time and we're going to squish them down. And the more that you work with your hinges, the more flexible they will be, the less likely they are to have any problems in the future, I think. And it'll just work better in your album, okay? So just kind of play around with them for a little bit, and then there we go. All right. Now, this center section here is what's going to attach to our spine, remember, on our cover. So you want to just kind of give it an eyeball. We did do that little score line on either side, 1/4 of an inch out, and that generally will line up with the space in between, but that's what we're going for. And we're going to end up centering it from top to bottom, and these little flaps are going to carry on over here like this, okay? So before we stick that down, we're going to deal with our cover. Now, why didn't we do this all at once? I wanted to give our cover a chance to kind of mellow and harden and get where it needed to be, okay? So we need to encourage our paper to fold, because what we're going to do is we're going to take all this overlap and we're going to fold it to the inside here. So what we want to do to encourage our paper to fold is we're going to take a straight edge. You can use a ruler, a bone folder. We're going to tuck it under there, hold this down nice and tight, and just run whatever you're using. You can even use your hand if you want, along there, and just encourage it to fold over. And it's better to do this before you stick any glue on anything, okay? So just give it a massage. And that's kind of what we do when we do the scoring here as well. We're just kind of encouraging it. Let's go to the other side. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to hold that chipboard down, and we're going to run this back and forth and just keep lifting and turning until we're finally rolled over onto the inside. Okay? You do this a lot when you're doing origami, and I took origami lessons from the art studio here in Brampton, and it was always very important to make sure that you had your paper cooperating with you. Not only that, paper has a memory, and when paper has a memory, you want to make sure that the memory is a good one from the start. It's like kids. You want to have good memories when they're young. All right, so we're going to massage all the way along this long edge, like this, until we get to the point where it rolls over. Try not to give yourself a paper cut. I almost felt one there. Keep your fingers out of the way. I swear it also helps to have something else that you're using. And one of the worst paper cuts I ever got, and I got quite a few of them when I worked in an office, was file folder paper cuts. Oh my gosh, you know, you're trying to shove things in the file folders and you get them on your knuckles. Oh, worst. So cardstock would be right up there. Okay, let's massage this side too. You didn't know you were getting a lesson in massaging paper today. What are you doing in your craft room, honey? Oh, I'm just massaging my paper. That's what I'm doing today. Alrighty, there we go. Okay, now we need to do a little bit of adhesive happening, and we're also going to do a little bit of trimming, but I like to do my adhesive in stages. So we're going to come in with our Hold It For Now adhesive, and I'm going to run a couple lines of it just because this is about a 1/2 inch or more. That's an overhang, and I have 1/4 inch tape. So I'm going to go ahead and add tape top and bottom, or side, like that, and that. And then we're going to go across here. I'm wandering a bit. There we go. And a second line. Do, 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 do. How's everybody doing? All right, questions. Have you made a mini album before? There's lots of ways to make mini albums. You can buy small albums and just fill them in. We have the pocket page albums and things like that. You can make folios, which are another kind of smaller type of thing. It's just kind of a different name, that's all. And then there's ones that you make completely from scratch. Okay, so now that I've got some adhesive on all those sides, I want to do a little bit of trimming. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim sort of a 45-degree angle on all the corners, but I'm not coming right tight up to my chipboard. I'm going to back off just like a hair from the corner, but I'm just going to trim across there like that. Okay, and then you could measure if you wanted to make sure it was exactly a 45-degree corner. I'm not going to be that particular, but we're going to trim it off on an angle. There we go. All the way around like that. Okay, now it's time to start sticking. And I'm actually going to stick the top and bottom first. So I'm going to take my adhesive off the bottom, or the top, I'm not sure which. We'll figure that out once we realize where the join is. This is actually the top, but it's sitting at the bottom. Because my join's going to be at the back. So we've got our stick it for now, and this is our stick it for later. Our insurance going on here. So we're just going to add that on. And then we're going to kind of do the same process that we did before. We're going to start and we're going to kind of roll it. And when you get it kind of rolled, you want to start in the center and get it rolled over. And you may have glue that smushes out, but that's okay. And remember, we're starting in the center because what did we say about when you're creasing things down? I've got glue on here now. When we're creasing things down, we could get a little askew. All right, we can also go to where those joins are and add a little bit of a crease. And then anywhere where the glue is smushing out, you can take something and just wipe that off. You don't necessarily need it. Okay. Looks good. Now we come to the other side We're going to take our backing off. Good morning, Judy. Yes, my mom has made many. Many doesn't even cover it. Oodles would be more accurate. Oodles of mini albums. All right, so let's add our Stick It for Forever glue. I mean, barring any major catastrophe. Too much humidity is not great for any kind of paper or glue. All right, so we're massaging it over. Get that center rolled. Roll all the way down. Where that join is, you kind of have to give it a little extra massage just to make sure everything gets over. And this is the thing I like about the Stick It for Now and the Stick It for Later, is that if you have the Stick It for Now there, you don't have to hold it and wait for the glue to set. You can just move on, okay? I know there's a lot of diehards that are like, just use liquid glue, it's the best. But I'm impatient and I want to move on. All right, we're going to go to one of the ends. And this is a lot of just repeating the process. But we're getting there. All right. Give it a little massage. I got a decent amount of glue on my bone folder now, so at some point I'm probably going to need to to wash it off. There we go. And just encourage that all the way over. I might have trimmed it a little close on that one. This one turned out pretty good, but that's okay. If I get really concerned about it, I can always take a little bit of green ink and kind of fudge that corner. All right. Add our glue. And massage. Massage. Get the center in. There we go. Look at that, opposite corners. It's always the opposite corners. Two opposites joined up exactly, and one's a little off. One pair's off. There we go. Okay, now we can go to where we join up here. Make sure we've got all our creases, and you can see as I'm pushing down, the side is actually lifting up. Okay? Now, you should be able to then close your album and not have any cracks. If you see cracks, that's a sign that you didn't do enough massaging. Okay, now, we've got our back over here because that's where our seam is with our join. And on here now, we need to add our hinge. So we've got our side that has our little hingy, sticky-uppy bits, and then we have our flat side. So let's lay down our flat side. We're going to add some adhesive. So we're going to come right to the edge there. I'm going to add, and I think I'm going to add a strip for every 1/4 inch part of the hinge, because that's the worst, right? You don't want your spine, your hinge to separate from your spine. So you want to make sure it's stuck down good as can be. And there we go. And then the outside edge, as much as you want. You could completely cover it if you wanted. Okay, now we're going to take off our adhesive. Oops, something just fell in my craft round. Oh, I know what it was. It's okay. Crisis averted. We're going to take off all of our backings. If I can get it. It's gone down in the little crevice there. You know what? I'm going to do all of them. I was going to leave the outside ones. I'm just going to live live dangerously. I'm going to take them all off, and I'm going to put glue all down that spine and over here as well. Do, 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 do. Do, do. Okay. Now, we know, I'm going to move this close to myself. I know it's way down at the bottom of your screen. We're going to center it top to bottom, and we're hopefully going to get our south vertical as well. And we're just going to stick it on down. So we've centered over our spine. Make sure all our little hinges move. And if we look at it from the end, there's our little hinges. Looks like we got them pretty well centered. That one wants to flop that way. That's okay. All right. Now, I'm not going to mangle my, my thing too much because there's still things that are drying. But I do want to add a little bit of decorative element on the inside to cover up all of our little joins and folds and things. And so I've got a piece of the new woven Textures pattern paper, the designer series paper, and I have cut this to 5.5. You could go 5 3/4. In fact, I probably, yeah, you know what? I'm going to switch that. We're going to do 5 3/4. I was thinking 5.5, but 5 3/4 looks as though it would be a better fit. And now I'm scanning for my paper. Here we go. So this is new. It had just come out on the 4th. It's part of the online exclusives release on March the 4th. And it's woven textures, and it's really pretty. It's got all sorts of basket weave and sisal, and it's just gorgeous. So we're going to do 5 3/4, and don't worry, I'll probably end up using those ones on the inside of my album somewhere. So let's go to 5 3/4, and just trim that. And turn 5 3/4, 5 3/4. Okay, well, let's stick that on. I think that will be a better fit. Yes, mucho bueno. I'm sure that's not correctly pronounced or said at all. Much better. Let's add some glue. I'm not going to worry about the tape right now. I'm just going to add the liquid glue. Doo-doo. Getting it everywhere. Getting gluey. And then we will stick this down, centering it, and we can kind of move it around till it sits in the center. And then stick it all down. This so reminds me of like the heap of sisal twine you end up in your barn after you've been opening bales. Alright, more glue on this side. Ooh, all over. I always feel like a little kid doing that. And line that up. That's looking good. Stick that down. There we go. So we have our inside decoration for our covers. We've got our hinge attached. We've got our pieces for our cover. We have covered it with cardstock. And now we have finished our cover and hinge, other than decorative bits. But that will be where we end off here for part 1. And so tomorrow we're going to work on creating the signatures for going onto our hinge. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your morning. We'll be on at 11:30 for Chat and Craft. We'll see you then. Toodaloo. Bye.